My name is Daniel. I'm 49 years old. I lived with Megan for nearly 11 years in a suburb that pretended peace. It sold you the illusion of safety. White fences, seasonal decorations. Every garage door the same shade of resigned beige. People waved from across their driveways, smiled with their mouths, and shut their doors before you got too close. I knew their routines better than their names. Knew the sound of their cars, the rhythm of their sprinklers, the way they paused before checking the mail, just in case someone tried to speak. It was a quiet place for loud disappointments. The kind you never yelled about. The kind that grew in silence. The kind that hollowed. We weren't married. Megan never wore a ring. Not because she didn't believe in commitment. She believed in comfort. In things that didn't ask too much of her. Our arrangement, she used to say, was a comfortable compromise. I was part of her life the way a coffee table is part of a living room. Solid, useful, expected, but never central. Just there. Supporting weight that wasn't mine to question. I paid for everything. The mortgage. The utilities. The car she drove. The insurance we pretended was shared. The school fees. The orthodontist. The overnight shipping for Olivia's forgotten textbooks. I paid in dollars but more often in silence. I handled the noise so they could sleep through the storm. I woke up before everyone else. 6 a.m. Alarms. Coffee already brewing when Megan wandered in. Hair still tangled in sleep. Never thanking me. I drove Olivia to early soccer practice in the freezing dark. Scraping ice off the windshield with fingers that still ached from the roofing job I did the weekend before. I carried the groceries, managed the budgets, kept the gutters clear. When Megan's mother needed end-of-life care, I rearranged work to drive her to appointments, sat in waiting rooms that smelled like bleach and finality, while Megan stayed home to handle things emotionally. No one asked if I was okay. I didn't ask either. My presence was constant. My role was invisible. Olivia never called me dad. That's fine. I never expected her to. But there's a difference between withholding affection and offering disdain. She kept a distance even in her tone. Cool, polite, transactional. Like I was customer service. Like she was waiting for the manager of her real family to arrive and fix what she saw as temporary. That was the dynamic. I was the man in the house, but never of it. Not once did Olivia ever thank me for the things I provided. Not when I covered her braces. Not when I upgraded her laptop before her sophomore year. Not when I spent 3 nights building the desk she never used. She accepted it all like the seasons, expected, natural, requiring no acknowledgement. And Megan was good at avoidance. She let things slide. She was led at silence. When Olivia brushed past me without saying goodnight, Megan would look down at her phone. When I brought it up later, she'd deflect. She's a teenager, she'd say. They all go through that phase. But it wasn't a phase. It was a pattern. One she refused to name because naming it would mean taking sides. And Megan never took sides. She took comfort. She called me her partner when it was convenient. But when it came to school forms, family introductions, or online bios, she defaulted to single mother. She said it was simpler. Said people understood it better. Said it avoided confusion. I was the confusion. A living contradiction. Provider, but not patriarch. Committed, but unofficial. Essential, but expendable. I told myself it would change. That time would build bridges. That consistency would matter. That showing up over and over and over again would mean more than biology. But time doesn't build bridges when the foundation is cracked. I remember the first real sign that something had rotted beneath the surface. Olivia had a birthday party when she turned 14. Nothing extravagant. Just cake, music, a few of her friends in the backyard. I grilled burgers while Megan set up the decorations. Olivia barely acknowledged me. Not a hello. Not a nod. She laughed with her friends, took selfies, posed with Megan. When they sang happy birthday, I stood off to the side, holding the lighter for the candles I bought, and she didn't even look at me. When Megan handed her a gift labeled from both of us, Olivia tore it open, smiled, and hugged only her mother. After the party, when I said I felt a little invisible, Megan shrugged. She's a teenager. Don't take it personally. But I did. Of course I did. Because invisibility isn't a phase, it's a choice. It wasn't just Olivia. It was the architecture of the house, the emotional scaffolding that had been designed without me. Every family memory was tethered to Brian, her biological father. His pictures still lingered in dusty photo albums on the top shelf. His name came up in stories Megan told Olivia. Memories of vacations, inside jokes, little phrases they used. I never spoke ill of him. Didn't need to. His absence said enough. But his ghost had seniority. Brian had left when Olivia was 5. She told everyone he was working on getting his life together. That was the phrase Megan used too, as if he was a construction project running a little behind schedule. He called sometimes, rarely, promised things he never delivered. But Olivia clung to the idea of him. She defended him in ways she never defended me. When he canceled a visit, she said he was busy. When I was 10 minutes late picking her up, she glared like I had committed treason. I was there, every day, every week, every year. But he was Dad. Me? I was Daniel. Just Daniel. I wasn't jealous. I was tired. Tired of filling someone else's shoes while being told not to walk too loudly in them. Tired of being told I was lucky to be part of something that never made room for me. Tired of pretending my sacrifices were just part of the deal. At night, I would lie in bed next to Megan, listening to her soft breathing, wondering if she even knew what I carried. Not just bills, not just tasks, but the weight of unacknowledged devotion. The grief of being needed but never chosen. I once told a friend, one of the few I still kept in touch with, that I felt like a ghost in my own home. He laughed, said, "Man, that's just being a stepdad." No, it's not. It's being erased. People talk about stepfathers like we're inheriting something. Like we're lucky to walk into a halfway built family and just pick up where the last guy left off. They don't talk about what we lose. Our names, our place, our sense of self. 11 years. 11 years of showing up, paying, carrying, waiting. And somewhere deep in the silence of that house, I started to understand. They weren't waiting for me to become part of the family. They were waiting to see how long I'd last before I realized I never was. Megan's daughter, Olivia, had always spoken about her biological father like he was stuck in traffic. Delayed, not gone. Coming soon. "He's figuring things out," she'd say, parroting Megan's soft-focused language. "Once he gets stable, he'll be around more." She was 16 the first time I heard her say it, like a prayer she still believed in. A child's faith in a man who had long since defaulted on presence. Brian was a mirage. He'd appear just enough to make himself unforgettable, then vanish before anyone could hold him accountable. A call every few months. A comment on Instagram. A sudden drop-in with a box of cupcakes that looked store-bought but cost more than I'd spent on Olivia's school supplies that month. He had timing. Always appearing just before birthdays, just after report cards. Right when things were hardest and she needed someone to remind her of her fantasy. The first time I met him, he arrived 10 minutes late to a school play I had helped Olivia rehearse for. He wore a leather jacket that looked expensive and sunglasses despite the dusk. Megan lit up like a woman remembering her 20s. Olivia ran to him like he'd just come back from war. I stood in the lobby, holding her costume bag and a bouquet of flowers she hadn't even looked at yet. He shook my hand like I was an employee. Told me, "Thanks for taking care of my girls." Smiled wide, no shame, no irony. Like his abandonment was just another shared joke between men. I laughed. Out loud. Just once. Then I bit my tongue so hard it bled. But I said nothing. Because I knew better than to make myself the story. I watched Megan look at him like he was a favorite movie rerun. I watched Olivia cling to his arm like nothing had ever been broken. And I told myself again that my time would come. That one day I'd be enough. That belief died at a school fundraiser in late autumn. It was one of those events the district throws together with plastic chairs, lukewarm coffee, and high expectations. Raffle tickets, homemade brownies, everyone pretending to enjoy themselves while silently calculating how much they could donate without drawing attention. I had taken the day off work, printed the programs, helped set up the tables, Even stayed late the night before stapling student photos onto poster boards. When the lights dimmed for the presentation, Olivia stood between her mother and her father. I watched from the far end of the room, next to the stage, clipboard in hand, waiting for the slideshow to end so I could cue the next speaker. That's when it happened. The MC, a flustered PTA mother I'd spoken to 3 times that week, called out for a few parents to come say a few words about their graduating children. I assumed Megan would go. Maybe Brian. I wasn't sure how long he planned to stay, but I figured he'd want the spotlight. What I didn't expect was for Megan to take his hand and lead him up with her. As if this was their moment. Brian stepped up to the microphone, cleared his throat like a man who hadn't prepared a word but loved the sound of his own voice. He gestured toward Olivia's poster behind him, one of the ones I had stapled, one of the ones I had paid to have printed, and said, loud and clear, "We're so proud of our daughter." Just like that, Megan nodded, smiled. She didn't look back. My clipboard felt heavier than it had 10 seconds earlier. I stood there, silent, a few feet from the stage, waiting for someone, anyone, to acknowledge me. A nod, a gesture, even a glance. But there was nothing. No pause. No recognition. It wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate casting. A stage set for 2. They weren't just proud parents. They were rewriting the story, and I had been cut from the script. I watched the crowd clap politely. I watched Olivia beam as if those words were water after a drought. She never once looked toward me. Not once. When it ended, I stayed behind to clean. Megan and Brian left first. Olivia followed. I assumed they were going out for dinner. I didn't ask. I stacked chairs in silence, threw out half-eaten cookies, folded the tablecloths into uneven squares. When the janitor came through and asked if I needed help, I said no. That night I didn't sleep. I lay beside Megan, who scrolled through pictures on her phone. Smiling ones, blurry ones, photos of her, Olivia, and Brian. Laughing outside the fundraiser, arms around each other like the last 11 years had never happened. I watched her save one to her favorites. She didn't even try to hide it. "Did you have a good time?" she asked, like we were still pretending. "Sure," I said. "Great event." She kissed my shoulder like that made everything better. Like a small gesture could reattach a severed limb. But something in me had snapped. Quietly, permanently. I realized that night that I was a tool, a utility. I existed to make their lives easier. I was infrastructure, dependable, invisible, replaceable. The worst part? My silence had taught them I agreed with it, that I accepted it, that I preferred it. So I made a decision. I didn't shout. I didn't break plates or demand a conversation. I didn't go looking for a fight I knew I wouldn't win. I knew how this worked. Any resistance would be framed as drama. And drama was something Megan never tolerated. Not from me. Instead, I waited until Megan fell asleep, her breath slow, her back to me. I slipped out of bed, logged into my private account, and moved the college fund. Every cent I had saved for Olivia, every dollar I had squirreled away during years of overtime, skipped vacations, and deferred dreams, took less than 3 minutes. The browser autofilled everything. The new account was already open, one I'd prepared months ago, just in case. Back then, it had felt paranoid. Now, it felt inevitable. I didn't delete the old one. I just emptied it, left the shell behind like a snake skin. I closed the laptop, sat there in the dark, listened to the quiet hum of a house I had built with my own hands, and realized it wasn't mine. No one noticed the next day, or the day after. I still made breakfast, still took Olivia to school, still refilled the fridge, paid the utility bills, fixed the leaky pipe under the sink. But something in me had gone quiet, colder, cleaner. I wasn't punishing them. This wasn't revenge. This was math. This was clarity. If I wasn't part of the family, then the family wasn't my responsibility. I watched Olivia joke about college applications over dinner, watched Megan nod along as if the path ahead was already paved. I said nothing, because what neither of them knew was that the road had already been pulled up. and they were about to find out how far they'd gotten on credit. It was a Thursday afternoon when the first tremor hit. I was home early. The job site had been rained out, and I'd taken the rare chance to sit on the porch with a mug of black coffee that had long since gone cold. The kind of silence you don't realize you miss until you finally sit in it. No clattering dishes, no distant music from Olivia's room, no Megan's voice reminding me to pick up milk. Then I heard her footsteps through the screen door. Megan, barefoot, hair damp from the shower, holding an envelope she hadn't opened all the way. White, thick, government-issued. Her face was pale, her thumb still pressed against the paper where she'd torn it jagged and uneven. "They denied her," she said without greeting. Her voice was flat, like she couldn't decide if she was confused or angry. I said nothing. She blinked, trying to force the words through her mouth again, as if saying them twice would change the reality inside the envelope. "The loan. They denied Olivia's application. They said the account listed on the FAFSA doesn't exist anymore." She looked at me then, not pleading, not furious, just stunned, like the air had been knocked out of her and she didn't know who'd thrown the punch. I nodded once, slow, sipped the coffee that tasted more like rust than warmth. "I moved it," I said. A pause, just a beat. "What?" "I moved the college fund," I repeated. No emphasis, no apology, just fact. She stepped onto the porch like someone walking into a room that had been robbed. "Why would you do that?" I met her eyes, and for the first time in 11 years, I didn't soften my voice. "Because it was mine. You said it was for her." "I said a lot of things," I said. "Most of them to myself. While I paid the bills. While I worked double shifts. While I watched the two of you pretend I was a background character in a movie you thought you were starring in." She looked away then, but not before her face cracked. Just a little. A fault line starting to spread. "This isn't like you," she whispered. "No," I said. "It's like the man you made me." She stood there a while. No yelling. No argument. She was smart enough to know this wasn't impulsive. This was the sound of something long overdue finally arriving. That night, I packed my things. Not in anger. Not in haste. I folded shirts I had bought myself, zipped up the duffel I kept in the closet from the last time I had imagined leaving. That bag had gathered dust for 5 years. I shook it out like shaking loose an old version of myself. Megan didn't stop me. She sat on the couch with a wine glass in her hand and a look on her face like someone waiting for a storm she knew she deserved. "I never asked you to leave," she said softly. "You never asked me to stay," I replied. She winced. That one hit. Good. It was supposed to. "I didn't do this to punish you," I said. "I did this to stop punishing myself." I didn't leave a note. No grand speech. No final act of clarity. I walked out of the house I had paid for like a man walking out of a burning building, already coughing from the smoke long before the flames showed up. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it. Took 2 days before Olivia called. Not to ask where I was. Not to ask if I was okay. She called to ask if there was some kind of mistake with the bank. Her voice was flat, confused, transactional. "There's no money in the account," she said. "Did you move it somewhere?" "I did." A pause. "Why?" "Because I'm not your father, Olivia." Another pause. Longer. "You've always said you were. You told me that didn't matter." "No," I said. "You told me it didn't matter. And I believed you." She didn't answer that. Just hung up. The way people do when they realize the rules they've played by have expired. The next day, Megan texted. Just 2 words. "Please reconsider." I didn't reply. The days blurred. A week passed. Then 2. I rented a small 1-bedroom near the edge of town. Close enough to my work site. Far enough from anything that had once resembled obligation. It was quiet. The fridge was half empty, the closet smaller, the air stale. But it was mine. And silence, when it's earned, can sound like music. Then the 3rd tremor came. It was Olivia again. This time at my door. I heard the knock before I saw her. Light, uncertain. Not like the girl who used to stomp around the house in expensive boots she never cleaned. I opened the door and there she stood. Shoulders slouched, hoodie zipped too high, eyes rimmed with something too tired to be tears. "They're going to cancel my enrollment," she said. I stepped aside. She didn't come in. "I don't know what to do," she added. "That makes two of us," I said. "I thought—" She hesitated, digging her hands into her sleeves. "I thought you'd come back." I looked at her then, not with anger, not with cruelty, just with the eyes of someone who finally understood value. "I was never in," I said. "I was adjacent. I was tolerated. I was convenient, but I was never in." She opened her mouth, closed it, swallowed the apology that never came. "Your mother?" I asked. "She's trying to figure it out," she said. "Brian won't answer. She doesn't know where he is." I nodded. "That sounds familiar. Can't you just help this once?" she asked, voice cracking just slightly. "Just until we figure it out?" I let the silence fill the space between us like water rising between islands. "If I help now," I said slowly, "you'll think the silence was temporary, that the distance was conditional, that everything resets when you panic. But this isn't panic. This is peace. For me." "You raised me," she whispered, a last-ditch grasp at moral leverage. "I did," I said, "and that was the mistake." Her eyes widened, hurt blooming. I didn't flinch. "I gave what wasn't asked for, gave until I was empty, and in return I got a seat in the back row of your life. You let a stranger be your father because he was a fantasy, and you let me be your wallet because I was real." She left without another word. Smart girl. She knew there were none left that would work on me. In the weeks that followed, I heard things. Through mutual friends. Through slips in conversation. Olivia had deferred her admission. Megan had taken out a second mortgage she couldn't afford. Brian had, unsurprisingly, evaporated like mist. And me? I started sleeping through the night. No footsteps overhead. No low murmurs behind closed doors. No voices laughing at jokes I wasn't part of. Just silence. Real silence. Earned. It's been 8 months. The leaves are changing again, curling at the edges like pages burned too slowly. This town always looks better in the fall, like it's hiding something under the color. But this year, for the first time in over a decade, I watch it shift alone. No Megan. No Olivia. No house with a porch full of dying plants I forgot to water. No laughter behind closed doors that never opened for me. Just me. The apartment is quiet. Spartan. The rent is cheap, the walls are thin. I can hear the man above me coughing through the night. Hear the woman next door practicing piano at hours that suggest she's either very lonely or very new to it. I don't mind. Their noise isn't mine to fix. The bills are light now. No orthodontist. No car insurance for a girl who called me by my first name. No streaming services I never used but paid for because everyone watches this show. The bank account holds a number that feels like breathing room, not bait. Megan hasn't called in months. After Olivia dropped out, after the mortgage company started circling, after Brian vanished again like he always did, I imagine she had other things to focus on. Her last text was short. "We didn't think you'd actually leave." I stared at it for a while before deleting it. Not out of anger. Out of understanding. Of course they didn't think I'd leave. I never had before. Every year, I swallowed another ounce of silence. Every month, I handed over more of myself like it was owed. I had trained them to see me as reliable. And reliability is easy to confuse with obedience. But the truth is, I didn't leave them. They left me first. They left when they stopped asking how my day was. When they edited me out of memories I paid to create. When Olivia started introducing me as my mom's boyfriend, and Megan didn't correct her. When they made space for Brian at the table and left me off the invitation. That's the part people don't talk about. How a man disappears long before he walks out the door. How love turns into labor. How presence turns into background noise. How stepfathers become scaffolding, necessary until the paint dries. And when I removed myself, the house didn't collapse. Not right away. It leaned. It groaned. It let the wind in. but it stayed standing long enough for them to pretend nothing had changed. Then winter came. Then tuition bills came due. Then silence from Brian grew too loud to ignore. And finally, they saw what I had carried. Not because they looked at me differently, but because they looked for me, and I wasn't there. I heard from a mutual friend that Olivia tried to contact me again in April. Said she wanted to talk. Said she understood now. But understanding doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't undo the nights I sat in a driveway after work, too tired to walk into a house that never felt like mine. It doesn't repay the sacrifices I made while being told over and over that I was just the guy who helps out. And if you think that sounds petty, ask yourself this. What do you owe a family that doesn't claim you? What do you call loyalty when it's never returned? Where do you draw the line between parenting and servitude? Because I didn't raise Olivia out of obligation. I did it because I believed love could be built. That maybe, just maybe, a man who showed up every single day could be enough. But love that isn't reciprocated is not noble. The self-erasure. And I have no interest in disappearing again. Some days I still remember the little things. The way Olivia used to leave her sneakers by the door even after I asked her a dozen times to put them away. The way Megan would leave 2 sips of wine in a bottle like she was saving it for tomorrow. The way Sunday mornings used to feel before the weight of expectation settled in. But nostalgia is a liar. It edits out the exhaustion, the disrespect, the quiet humiliation of being a guest in a house you bought. People still ask about them sometimes. Old coworkers, neighbors who saw me mowing the lawn and assumed I was living the dream. I just say, we went separate ways. If they press, I shrug. Some things weren't built to last. But that's not quite true, is it? Some things were never built at all. They were borrowed, assembled with the pieces left behind by someone else. And I was just the man trying to hold them together with duct tape and silence. Now I build differently. I don't invest in what calls me temporary. I don't pour myself into vessels that leak. I don't show up where I'm not named. The money I saved for Olivia's college now sits in an account untouched. I thought about donating it. Thought about spending it on something wild and loud and selfish. A boat. A trip. Car too fast for my age. But I haven't touched it. Because that money has already taught me its lesson. That value without gratitude is theft. That sacrifice without acknowledgement is decay. That the title of dad means nothing unless it's given. Not just spoken, but lived. I was never asking for applause. Not even a card. I just wanted to be seen, respected, named. Instead, I was rendered invisible in a house I built. So now I ask you, whoever you are, wherever you're reading this from, was I wrong to leave? Was I cruel to withhold what was never appreciated? Was I selfish to stop giving when all I wanted was to matter? Or was that the first honest act in a life defined by compromise? What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have stayed? Would you have given knowing it would never be enough? Or would you have walked away like I did, quietly, finally, completely, and let the silence do what words never could? Tell me, was I wrong?